Welcome to the next episode of Take a Break.
Take a break. Keep the whole world guessing. Take a break from the human race. Take a break when it gets depressing. Take a break.
Pat Armistead is a voice for all that is joyful. In this series, she brings a fresh approach to emerging consciousness. Through conversational, social, and emotional intelligence, she and her guests explore new models of leadership that embrace humor, empathy, and compassion.
My guest today is Christopher Rausch. He's America's #1 no excuses coach, hails from California, and I'm going to hazard a guess that if he had one word, it would be unstoppable.
Yes.
Christopher, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, Pat, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it. I look forward to our discussion.
Yes, I've been following you a little bit on LinkedIn and really enjoying what it is that you have to say. And you've got 3 key words on your LinkedIn page: reinvent, empower, and excel.
Yes.
Unpack those for us, if you will.
Reinvent. Yes. As you can tell, I'm a bit different than most people, and I had to reinvent myself at one point. We were just talking off camera about that. Once upon a time, I have been different personalities and different people for the fact that I wanted to get significance. I wanted to get acceptance. I wanted to be liked, and I wanted to be popular throughout my elementary school years, my junior high school years, and I actually dropped out in the 7th grade. Up until probably about 5 or 10 years ago, I was struggling to be somebody who I wasn't. And so I had to reinvent myself. In reinventing, I didn't reinvent to become somebody else. I reinvented to become who I actually was, that I was hiding from all those years. So in that fact that I had to reinvent myself, I encourage people in that aspect that they have to just be true to themselves and stop being true to the mask that they put on every single day. Just be true and reinvent themselves to be who it is that they want to be, that they won't regret the life that they lived because they were trying to be somebody else that they're not, right?
Yeah.
The second one, empower, right?
Yeah.
I'm going off memory. So empower. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have to empower ourselves. We have to empower ourselves from the fact that the standpoint is that most people do not put themselves number one. And it took me a long time of trying to get people to like me, getting people to acknowledge me, accept me, and all those different things from being somebody who I wasn't. I was not empowered. I was a servant. And when I became empowered in my own space and realized that I am number one, it's not from a selfish standpoint, it's from a selfless standpoint, because when I'm number one, I can take care of everybody so much better. When I was operating at 40% and trying to take care of everybody else at 100%, I was drained. I was not giving them 100%. And then when I realized that I had to take care of myself and it wasn't being selfish, I had to put myself number one. The amount of contribution that I'm able to give now is it's monumentally more impactful than I was when I was operating at a lower level. So once I empowered myself to be stronger and allow myself to be who I am, that's when my success truly took off. And then the last one, ignite.
Oh, I missed that one, but go on.
We went through so many different ones. If I don't stare at it, there was like a million different adjectives that we came up with. So what was it? What was the last one? The third one? Ignite?
Excel.
Excel. Yes. So once you empower yourself, you have to excel. You have to take off. You have to sit there and realize now that you've got your map book of where it is that you want to go. And for me, when my coaching clients is I teach them and we write their eulogy together. And if you know where it is that you're going, then you use that as a roadmap to figure out how you have to get there. So for me, my dream is that my son is going to grow up in an amazing environment, that we're going to be happy and healthy. We're going to be not stressed out by the corporations and all the other BS that's going on in the news and the propaganda in the world today. At the time of this taping, we're going through COVID. My goal is that I can wake up in the morning and hear the beach, that I can, have time with my family. I can have a cup of coffee on the porch, that I can go, have those amazing moments where I impact people, that I can contribute every single day. And then when the sun goes down, I can have a drink or whatever, sit on the balcony with my family, have a fire, and just recap the day and just enjoy the moments, because we get so caught up in all the other stuff that involves the ego. For me, it's just like having those moments and those special moments and having them that freedom to do that. That's where that comes from.
Yeah. My speaking of freedom, the things that get me out of bed are love, freedom, and spiritual intimacy. And one of the things you alluded to, COVID, the COVID phenomena, um, we've lost our freedom. However, I'm really seeing for those who've been doing a lot of self-development, who've really taken on the idea you can be the change that you want to see and endeavouring to live into that. There's a huge connection to what's possible now, but there's also some uncertainty, hesitancy, doubt, and this like contrasting interplay, which is preventing that full expression. Who do I believe for, you know, what's really going on? What do I believe? What do I conform to? And what do I make a stand for, not necessarily against, but what do I make a stand for? And being firm in that when we've actually been forced to be alone has been a challenge for many.
Yes.
So developing, we have a mutual friend, Sally Anderson, who loves the word equanimity, as do I. I painted a piece of art called Equanimity. And finding that place takes a lot of courage, commitment, and consistency. At the turn of the century, I had a whole series of losses. I lost my home and my business twice over a 4-year period. My business went down the gurgler here in Australia. I moved to New Zealand owing $80,000, which I repaid in 2 years. I'd had cancer. I had previously lost my first child, a daughter. And when I moved to New Zealand, I had 10 car accidents in the first 18 months I was there.
How many?
10.
10?
And yeah, about one every 6 weeks. And boy, did I have crash karma.
That is something I've never heard before.
No. And at the height of all of that, once I'd repaid the money, my partner of 20 years left with another woman. And language is important to me because of his parting sentence. He said, "No, I don't love you, and I never loved you." So that was my, I thought if that's true, then everything I've ever known is not true. And so I disintegrated. And everything since has been about reintegration and looking at what was true and what was not, and what do I bring forward, and what do I want to make a stand for now. And I was very depressed, but I was grieving. You know, the enormity of all of those losses over a short period of time was extraordinary. And we don't talk about grief. We've become grief illiterate and death phobic. Thank you.
Life.
Yeah. We've become grief illiterate and death phobic. And in that space, we don't have those conversations. We've medicalized unhappiness. And so my mission was to find joy when it appeared there was none. That was like a personal thing. And then my business has grown from there. And the point I want to make is I was the world's first joyologist. It was a pioneering journey. And a lot of my colleagues in the speaking profession were of the opinion, you know, you can't wear that hat and you can't have your nails like that and you can't wear that outfit. You're not going to get any work in business looking like that and talking about this. And here we are. Of course, it has...
And you wished them a nice day.
Yeah.
But
that's what it takes courage. And then there are lonely periods along that pathway because you need to find your tribe. And, you know, what I wanted to talk to you about today was that empowerment thing. You know, where did, how did you come to be finding your full self-expression? And and being totally owning it is the word, I guess.
That's a great question. And just first of all, thank you again for having me here. And thank you again for sharing that, because that's so important that people hear the fact that even though we're in personal development and we're leaders and coaches, and that we're movers and changers, that we're not immune to the fact that we've been through some stuff. And that's what somebody was interviewing me to be their coach last week. And I found it very interesting. And she says, why would I pick you over any other coaches? And I said, well, my high recommendation to you, and this is no offense to people who've gone through ICF or anything else, the textbook coaching, I have nothing against that. But for me, I would much rather have a coach who's been through the stuff than somebody who has read about it in a book. And again, that's nothing to take away, because I've met some brilliant coaches who have had a perfect life, who could coach me under the table, and I've had a crappy life, by textbook standards. So I don't negate that. But the fact for me is everything in my life has been a journey. It's been a journey to get where I'm at today. I have a tattoo that says, what doesn't kill me only makes me stronger. So literally, Pat, I had to get that tattoo. I got that tattooed probably, my son's 3, probably 6 years ago, which is crazy because I feel like it was yesterday. And for me, even being the master motivator, being the kick-ass guy and everything that's like, that's got it figured out. I was just talking to a buddy of mine. I said, I hate it. I don't hate it, but I find it fascinating that people come up to me and they're like, Chris, you have so much energy. You have so much positivity. You're always on. You have it figured out. What's the secret sauce? And I'm like, no, I don't have it figured out. I'm not always on. But to answer your question, it was the fact that I got tired of being somebody that everybody else wanted me to be. The book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. It's an amazing book. Go out there and check it out. You can check out the blog article. But the number one regret of the dying was that they regretted being the person that everybody else wanted them to be versus the person that they wanted to be. So for example, you go into the father's plumbing business, you go into the mom's, whatever it is. They want you to become a sports person. They want you to become an actor. They want you to become this or that because they want you to live their unfulfilled dreams. And then you spend your entire life trying to match what their expectations were for their own self. And where do you end? You end up doing a giant jigsaw puzzle, which I saw this elderly lady doing this giant jigsaw puzzle. And I was like, wow, she was young. She was vibrant. She had so many opportunities in her life, and now she's here and she's all alone. So I took it upon myself to ask her, because I'm always asking people and trying to learn from the source what really screws us up in life. And I made conversation with her and I said, if you had your life to do over again, this is before I knew about the 5 regrets of the dying. And she looked at me matter-of-factly. She goes, I wish I would have lived. I wish I would have done what I wanted to do and be who I wanted to be. And this is an elderly lady that's doing a jigsaw puzzle in this convalescent center where my mom was staying. And I was just like, I said, can I give you a hug? And she was in a wheelchair and I gave her a hug and it just blew my mind. You have to be who you are. I mean, that's what we're here to be. Yeah. So if you're struggling with that, you have to just be who you are. I mean, I fly the freak flag. I'm this guy. I'm the kick-ass guy. I swear I'm colorful, but I'm very passionate. I love people. I want to make a difference in the world. I believe that this world is one world. I believe that no matter what color you are, what shape, size, political affliction, everything else, that we're all the same. You split us down the middle, we're all the same. And it's my sincere desire throughout this whole process that we're going through is that there's one world, there's one love. And we all realize that we went through this all together. And I know I have people throughout the entire world that are friends of mine, coaching clients of mine, and it's all the same. We all just want to protect our families. We all just want to have a good life. We just want freedom. We want opportunities. Every population in this world wants the same exact thing, no matter what religion, no matter what book or Bible or whatever it is that they want to go to. They just want that one thing. So I encourage everybody just to be who you are, because life is so short. Why be anybody else?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was an artist. Excelled in art all through my school years, and when I left I wanted to go and do a university degree. But my mother said to me, well, that's lovely, dear, but I really think you should get a proper job. And so it was that I ended up nursing, and I had never thought about nursing, never considered it, not even entered my mind. However, I loved it, and I was there 16 years. And over that 16 years, of course, I developed my empathic, compassionate self, and then by default left nursing because I was burnt out, ended up with my own small video production company, eventually became a small ad agency.
You went from nursing to video production.
Nurses do
Damn,
funny
ladies and gentlemen, did you
things.
just hear that jump? That's courage right there. That's unstoppable. I love that. I went from being a nurse to video production. Yeah, I went from being an MMA fighter to a lion tamer. Sorry. I just want to highlight that's awesome.
Yes, yeah. And in there, I had that business for 11 years, was where I found full self-expression. We created commercials. I freelanced for the news, 2020, 60 Minutes, journalist, camera crew. And I made a 5-year plan to go full broadcast standard, and we achieved it in 2.5. And I did a backward plan. The first thing I did on that journey was I entered an award, a tourism award, and the first thing I did was write the speech that I would give on awards night, and then did a backward plan. And my planning has been that way ever since. I work in 90-day cycles, and I have this end vision, which is not normal by a lot of other people's standards. And then that taught me how to stay on the page. How do I stay connected to, I'm going to deliver that speech? And I had to ask myself, I decided one question a day, or one question all the time. And that question was, how does what I'm doing right now link to tourism? And I won. So that single-minded focus, you've got to want it. You've just got to want it so bad. And that's your calling, I think. There it is. But through all of those years in advertising, I still remained connected to the health sector. I was on hospital boards, I was on several charity boards. So I still had this huge involvement with my community and the health sector. So to be able to live and meld all of these expressions is now what I'd like for everyone to be able to achieve in their own picture of what that is. Everyone has a different expression, but it's probably the same over there for you. Here in New Zealand and Australia, we really value sport, especially football, and academia. And all the other intelligences, interpersonal, intrapersonal, spiritual, emotional, creative, practical, don't really get a look in anywhere near the same way. Yet, we all have all of those. And, my lifetime journey has been about harnessing that. I love that word, harness. I'm not a horsewoman, but to be able to, horse people tell me, when you have a team of horses pulling a cart, you can feel the energy of each horse in the reins. And you know what each horse needs. So how would it be to be that in our body, that we're that sensorially aware of what's here for me in this moment? And my life has really been informed by the performing arts, clowning, improv acting, storytelling, street theatre, moving statues, body painting. All of those things have really got me present to the inner and outer form of me. And then that compassion itself has really let me find a level of empathy. And I don't need to know a person's story in order to see or feel something's going on here. Yeah.
You're empathic.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a great richness in that. I'm single and live alone, and there have been periods over this last, how long have we been, 7-8 weeks, where I've felt that, I've felt lonely. However, because I have that, I've explored the capacity to which I can express, then I'm never lost for anything to do. Yeah. My problem has been to come back to being rather than doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Being in the moment.
Yeah. Oh, I
Cerebral
can be in the
people,
moment.
perfectionists trying to be in the moment. Yes, I understand. Yeah,
I met
it's like chasing cats in a room full of rocking chairs.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. I met a beautiful.
I have ADHD on crack. I mean, literally, my ADHD and my attention deficit is like. So I understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this mine is a bit like a pinball parlor with the lights going and the flippers, and it's all going on. And so, you know, my life challenge has been to harness that and succeed. Completion is really big for me.
Yes. We understand each other.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. So, you know, this space, I met a man while I was in New Zealand, a Maori fellow by the name of Panapa, and he'd finished a triple degree, and we're having coffee, and I said, oh, it's amazing. I said, so what are you doing now? He said, I'm a coach. And I said, where are you working from? And he said, at home. And I said, so how do you find your clients? And he said, oh, they just arrive. And I'm like, right.
Isn't that nice?
Unpack that for me.
Yeah, what does arrive mean?
Yeah. And I said, so you're telling me that you just sit there in your office and they come to your door at home? And he said, yes. So
like literally to his door.
Yep.
I was expecting to his email or his, Facebook Messenger or something like that.
No doubt he has a presence out there somehow.
Sure. But
in terms of comparing to my feverish marketing, shameless self-promotion, it's like you just sit here and be. Oh my God. So that was totally foreign to me. And that's probably one of the things that sent me on this inner journey. Street theatre. I wanted to be able to sit in that place, and all the performing arts have helped me to go within. Funny as that might sound.
It's all part of the master plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and improv acting, improv helps you get rid of the censor so that you come with first thought all the time. Genius.
Mm-hmm.
Just,
I love improv. I was just talking to my buddy that we do the Friday Night Lives with, Scott. We just started talking. I said, have you seen this Netflix special? It's got these two guys. I can't remember their names, something McGinovich or something like that. But the guys, they're totally doing improv live taping. And that the whole show is completely made up. They go to the audience. They say, has anybody got something going on? Have you seen this?
Yes.
God, isn't that brilliant?
Yes.
Those guys are off the hook in what they're attempting to do. I love improv, but to that level, oh my goodness. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. I trained with the Covert Bandits in New Zealand, and they're world players in terms of what they do. And the genius for improv actors or performers is all the work they do behind the scenes, which is not preparing for the show. It's preparing, like, for example, if you're training in a group of 12, and let's say we want to go from being perfectly bland to laughing our heads off. So 12 people, and so I'm bland, you begin to smile, and so it expands around the circle. So they do that with all the emotions. They go from bland to whatever extreme. And then when they want to access 0.4 along that circle, it's there. The whole process, they're so in tune with emotional expression. They're so in tune with their natural gifts. Not everyone will be a singer, for example, but they'll bring to the stage and that performance. I remember one of the last ones I went to in New Zealand before I moved back to Australia. Wade was leading the audience at the beginning, just like you're describing, and he asked a woman, offered something, and he's, I forget whether it was a character, and he said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Carol," and he said, "Correct." I was the only person that laughed. Hilarious.
Oh, really?
Hilarious. So this is the thing. It's like, what are you missing? What are people missing? And that's part of my thing, to get people present to. Did you miss that? Didn't you see that? Didn't you? You know, because they're dancing ahead, waiting for the next thing.
I was just going to say, they're either in the past thinking about something that happened that they have absolutely zero control over, or they're trying to predict or assume the future and they're not being in the moment. That's one thing I've learned the most out of the last 6 months of my life, which has been a bit chaotic with COVID and everything else that's gone on in my life, making that jump to go full-time speaking and coaching for my 26-year career job that I was, in my zone of excellence, but not my zone of genius. I mean, it's crazy what we go through, but you have to go and you have to free fall into that. You have to jump into it and soar and, just be in the moment. I mean, otherwise you're going to be so perfectionistic about it that you're going to try to predict everything. You're going to be anxiety ridden. You're going to be stress ridden. And the thing I've noticed in the last, since this COVID thing has come up, talk about, like you were saying with the other guy, the fact that I'm just like open to whatever experience is going to unfold that day. If my son's going to be in a great mood, awesome. If he's going to be in a crappy mood, okay, I got to deal with it. If I've got interviews or if I'm doing my show or I'm coaching somebody, I'm just letting the moment unfold. And it's so crazy because I was such a control freak. My previous identity was like, okay. And Sally did such a brilliant job in this. She goes, Chris, fuck mate, you're always in survivor mode. I'm like, no, this is how I am. She goes, no, you're always trying to survive. You're always trying to plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because you've always been in survivor mode from the time you're homeless, living on the streets, doing all those different things. You've always been survivor mode. And it wasn't until I saw that and started reading the Untethered Soul, started reading the Surrender Experiment, started reading Why Me, Why This, Why Now, and started reading some of these books and unpacking some of this stuff and realizing and going on that journey of near-death experiences and what's the afterlife about and what's this world really all about, spirituality versus religion and everything. It's been amazing because if you just sit here and be in the moment like we are and just dance in the fact that there's conversation going on and there's brilliance going on, that's what this life is about. You get that present, that what they call it, the present. It's so stupid to me in some ways. They call it the present, but it's such a gift because we have it. People didn't wake up from last night. People just got in car accidents as we're speaking. People just got diagnosed with cancer as we're speaking. People just committed suicide as we're speaking. We get this gift. So many people waste this gift on stupid bullshit. They're watching the news. They're feeding into propaganda. And like you and I were saying off camera, the world needs to be one. I've been in front of audiences of 600 to 1,000 people. And I'm like, how many of you guys have had a blood transfusion? And lots of people raise their hands. And I said, I'm not going to ask if you're racist or not, but if you are, I want you to ask yourself the question, did you ask where that blood came from when you were dying and you needed blood transfusion? If you're such a racist, did you care where that blood came from? Did you say, oh, did that come from a black person? I don't want a black person's blood. Or do I want to live? We're all the same. So, I mean, I'm just very passionate about the fact that the point of the show, I think you're saying, is own your individuality, own that, and go for that risk. But I think one of the things that will be a key indicator, and I want to ask you this, Pat, is, it's the 5 people we're around. If we're hanging around people that are trying to be disappointed Dunskies, they live in that victim mindset. They live in that fear mindset, that scarcity mindset. And here we are trying to soar. I mean, what's that going to do to our success or our failure? You have to figure out what those 5 people are. You have to get around the right people to be able to soar. So for those of you guys listening and struggling with this fact, just take the 5 people that Stephen Covey does it. The 5 people just right next to them, good or bad. Do they support you? Do they love you? Do they want you to take risks, or do they want you to stay the same? Are they afraid you're going to take off and make them feel inferior? You cannot soar when you're hanging around a bunch of turkeys.
Yeah. And that's a big shift, and that'll happen. That, for me, that's been an evolving thing over the last 20 years. There've probably been 2 or 3 major evolutions, and some people got off the train, and a couple of times that's been surprising and disappointing. It's like, oh my goodness, I thought we were more enduring than that, but I had shifted enough to not be had by it.
Yep.
Just,
and that's beautiful. You grow from that. You don't have any ill will from it. And so many people say, I feel bad for leaving that person behind. I'm like, that person is on their own journey. I have to remind myself that all the time. I was just talking to a friend of mine. I'm so empathic that it pisses me off sometimes, because it's like, some people they have to go on their own journey. You cannot save them. As much as I can walk up to somebody and have a 2-minute conversation with them and fix their life, literally. And But I have to realize and recognize that if somebody would have did that to me when I was 27 years old, I would have told them to F off and said, no, I've got to figure this out for myself. So I'm going to spend the next 13 years struggling to figure this out and go through this, alcoholism and all this other stuff that's going to try to make me figure out who I am to come out on the other side. Had I not had those terrible experiences, those dark experiences, I wouldn't be the person I am today. So I have finally realized, and I'm realizing it's not perfect, but those people that are like shooting themselves in the foot that we love, you have to let them shoot themselves in the foot. You have to be there for them, but you cannot stop them from pulling the trigger, because that's their trigger that's going to get them through to that place of pain that's going to cause them enough leverage to change. Just like you and I, we had enough pain in our life based on your experiences that you just shared, Pat. I mean, that's miraculous. My pain and my situations in my life, I mean, I had to go walk the dog to convince myself to live another day. I was just on Percocet. I quit taking Percocet 3 weeks ago, and I realized it was making me negative. It was helping with my pain, but there's things you have to do and determinations you have to make when you get to that pain point where we do things for two reasons: to avoid pain or to gain pleasure. And most of us are trying to avoid pain. So what do? We go shop. We watch Netflix for 20 fucking hours a day. We go on YouTube and watch cat videos. We do anything to preoccupy our mind from focusing on what it is that we need to work on. But this is the thing that I think, Pat, in this time, because I went into this with Pollyanna kind of glasses on, like, oh, we're all going to come out of this like one love. My thought now is that there's going to be three classifications of people that come out of this COVID crisis. You're going to have the people that are going to be worse than ever before. They're in the scarcity mindset. They're in the fear mindset. They're in the government's out to get us. Now we have killer hornets kind of mindset, and, boarding up their houses and buying guns and stockpiling fucking toilet paper. You're going to have the people that are going to be in the middle that are trying to survive. They're just trying to, they're tuning into podcasts like this. They're tuning into people like you and I. They're like, give me something to hang on to. Give me something that's going to get me out of this. Throw me a rope that's going to say, hey, I connect with you, and I'm going to get out of this too, because if you got out of this, I'm going to get out of this. And then you're going to have the people like you and I that are the thrivers, that are the people that are showing up and serving and saying, how can I give my gift? And that's all I've been doing, Pat, for the last 6 or 7 weeks, is getting on Facebook Lives. We've started Friday Night Live now as a result of this. It's just getting out there, serving and connecting and just helping people. It's phenomenal how that happens. So when you guys are out there thinking about your life, think about which group you're going to be in. Are you going to be in the one, oh my God, what are they going to take away from us next, and all this other stuff? Are you going to be in the survivor group, where it is that you have to figure out what you have to do differently? Dr. Wayne Dyer says, when you look at the things you look at, wait a minute.
Yes.
When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at begin to change.
Yes.
I always screw that up because it's always backwards and forwards. So it's up to you guys who are watching this and listening to this. Is this the time and the point in your life where you're going to take this as a sign to move on and to grow yourself and to take those risks? Because it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, look at us, Pat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I see is when you shift, everything shifts, just as you were saying. And that just is a marvel to me every time that, there's something, I'm triggered by something. I decide, okay, what do you need to look at, Pat? I go looking, and passage of time not always immediate. It's like, oh my goodness, look at that. It's not the same anymore. And there's incredible freedom and wonder. And I think that's been missing in people's lives for a long time. The wonder of this.
The adventure, the unfolding.
Yeah. Chris, this has been amazing. We need to do this again another time, and we will.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just based on that wonder and that adventure aspect, I just want to build on that for a second. So many times when you think about when we were kids, we had the belief, if somebody said, hey, Pat, what do you want to be when you're a kid? You were like, I want to be a nurse. I want to be an actress. I want to be a dancer. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a fire person. We had unlimited beliefs. We had no sense of what it is that we could accomplish or couldn't. If I want to be an astronaut, okay, well, go be an astronaut. Then what happens? We get to be 17 years old. Go be an astronaut. No, that's stupid. Nobody can become an astronaut. You think about that whole conditioning process that we have to undo. So, I mean, it's encouraging that the fact that you guys are watching this and listening to this might be a sign for you guys to reach out and get a coach, get a consultant, get somebody in your life that's going to have your back. Because when you guys out there, and I don't know about if this is true for you, Pat, best friends are supposed to be the people that tell you the truth, that tell you the stuff that you don't want to hear in a loving, compassionate way that says, hey, this is how you can grow. But what about you, Pat? I mean, when I look back at my best friends, I've got some amazing best friends. but I don't have best friends necessarily have the balls to tell me, hey, Chris,
No.
this is where you're screwing up. This is where you can become better. This is where we're missing you. And that's where coaches and consultants and people in this space can help you exponentially grow to become a better person. That's why we get around those people. That's why we make those investments, because we don't want to sit there and be in those other two categories. We're in the thriver category. We're in the serving category. We're in the situation where we're looking at things flowing into us, not sitting there experiencing scarcity and like, what the hell's going to happen next? Whatever's going to happen next is going to happen next. Here in the United States, God's honest truth. I'm scared shitless that this guy's going to be our president again. I mean, he's so many words that could come to my brain. It's an embarrassment. So I'm like, what if he can be, Chris, you can't control what's going to happen in November. All you can do is control in the moment. Now you're having a great conversation with Pat. In a few minutes, you're going to spend time with your family. That's all you guys can do, is just be in the moment, control what you can control, focus your beliefs there, and just take the risk and the tenacity to live your life.
Yeah. And I think trust and have faith that around how powerful each of us are. So, for you to stay in that place, I'm here in mine. We're creating this ripple effect in our pond, and the largesse of that. I presented at a Be the Change conference in New Zealand in the year 2000, and there were 300 people came, and it's the only conference I've ever presented at. There was no agenda. So we had this dawn ceremony, and then everyone's kind of gathering still outside and wondering, what's next? And of course, there was no what's next, not on a list anyway. And so she had 17 speakers, and we all got to speak numerous times over the day, and it just evolved. Some people couldn't be with it, like as in the audience, and they left. But those who stayed till about 9 p.m. And beautiful. It sits in, my body as probably one of the most significant things that gave me permission. I didn't know exactly what joyology was going to be way back then, but it gave me permission to step into that. And the lady who ran it, her name is Daring Donna, and she, on occasions, we've been at different events over the years, and she has said to me, Pat, what on earth are you doing here? You don't belong. You don't belong in this environment. What are you doing here? So, that thing, and it's a bit of a dance. Mm-hmm. And so just be with the dance. It's not right or wrong. It's just be with it. Yes.
That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Move your body. Get some music. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I was on a call yesterday with somebody, and I was a bit flat. I had a quiet day, and thought, I've got to do something. And so I spent 3 minutes or so dancing around my office to, that song Gloria.
Yes. I'm all about that stuff. I do Mbop by Hanson. Before you got to do something, before you went on, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You raise your energy level. I have a playlist called the morning playlist. It's probably got 7 or 8 songs on there. I always give my coaching clients this thing, like wake up in the morning, listen to these 7 or 8 songs that get you going. One of them's Mbop. I have ABBA on there. I've got some crazy dance music stuff that I have Beach Boys. I have all this stuff that just gets me in the mood to live life.
Yes. I play most mornings Celine Dion's song, I Am Alive. And I actually had an acting coach, and I learnt an improvised routine to that song, which I use when I open a keynote. And I am introduced by the MC, who just says, I have a surprise for you. I come out from behind the banner and act out the song. Nothing, no words spoken. I'm not singing or anything. Then they introduce me. So the words of the song are, very much affirming that I'm alive space. And the opening line of my introduction is, it's hard to believe there was a time when Pat Armitstead was not glad to be alive, blah, blah, blah. And what that's enabled, and I didn't know this was going to happen when I first began using it, we don't know the power of our gestures. So the better I do that improvised routine, then the more the audience are brought to tears. Because
Beautiful.
with no words or explanation, just what my body is doing tells them. And people come afterwards and say, when you did the beating heart thing, I just burst into tears.
That's beautiful.
So, see, and you know, it took me 3 months to get out of my head so that I could receive and be the song.
Yes.
And, you know, she coached me beyond my default. And she would coach me to, all right, we're going to begin here, and she wouldn't say where. So begin at all different segments of the song. So it was like totally embedded and internalized. And it's been so powerful. And
Wow.
I remember I was terrified the first time. What if they don't like it? What if they don't like it?
That's being alive. That's being alive. If you're terrified, that's being alive. So many people walk away from being, I don't want to be scared. I don't want to be. That's why you're here, to have a human experience, to be terrified, to grow, to have that excitement. Not to go at the end of your life and go, well, I did everything safe. I didn't even go on a roller coaster, you know?
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. I hope you guys out there listening are getting this, because this is powerful.
Yes. Yeah, really good. The other thing, I had a radio station in New Zealand, radio program, and for 5 years, and did really, really well with that. And it did have a schedule, and it did have segments, and I played commercials and I played songs, so it was like full on with that. But in terms of the guests and the dialogue, we were just present to what's going to happen in this program here now. And preparing the guest was a big part of that, because they needed to be freed up so that they weren't full of fear and inhibited in expressing themselves. So it was just a conversation.
That's all this has been.
Yeah.
Yeah. No agenda, no nothing. I had no idea what questions, how the flow was going to go. That's life. That is living. That is being, I teach it between existing and living. Most people are just existing, and they're playing the someday game. Someday when the kids are out, someday when my husband's not here, someday when blah, blah, blah. All those different things. They play the someday game, and then they realize they get to 40, 50, or 60, and they go, wow. Like a friend of mine just turned 68, I think yesterday. And he said profoundly, he goes, wow, life is short. He goes, I'm seeing that more and more every single day. And that's the truth. And when you look back on your life, don't look at it as you played it safe. Don't look at it as you were complacent. Don't look at it that you stayed in everybody else's opinions. Live life. Go be exciting. Go have those adventures. Go be childlike. That's the importance of the existence that we're having here, is so the wonder. Don't ever lose that wonder.
Mm-hmm. I wrote an article recently called The Joy of Living Rooms, and it talked to the fact that most of us have existing rooms, not living rooms.
True,
and what a living room looks like or could be like. What's the possibility in the reality of a living room, which is not necessarily your lounge room. Doesn't have to be. Yeah. Chris, if people would like to engage with you, talk to you, find you, read more of your work, what's the best place for them to find you?
The easiest place is ChristopherRausch.com, RAUSCH, ChristopherRausch.com. Go there. My social media is there, YouTube, Facebook. Connect with me. Send me a message. I would just love to connect with your audience and just provide value to them. But yeah, ChristopherRausch.com is the best place.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been fun. I love just dancing in the conversation, seeing where it goes, seeing how we can serve people. Thank you so much, Pat. This has been a blessing.
Yes. Yeah. So for the listening audience, hope you've enjoyed our session today. This is truly about, I call it finding joyful empowerment. And, you know, the place that we find it is when we take a break. You know, that taking a moment.
Take a break.
Thanks for taking a break with Pat Armistead.
Take a break.
Join us next time for more.
Take a break.
And be sure to like, share, and subscribe for updates. And don't forget to click the bell for notifications. Bye for now.